Well, good morning, everyone. Great to be talking into a camera again, but also thinking and praying about and for the people at Golgong. Looking forward to getting out and seeing you again in the next few weeks. Just a reminder, though this seems strange to be looking at a screen again, it almost feels like Back to the Future, doesn't it? I had to remind myself of where the camera was and how to do the video thing again and to charge the batteries and all of that. Perhaps we thought we'd left that behind. Hopefully over the last few months we've been reassuring people and saying yes, we are going to continue to work together as churches across Mudgee and Golgong and even further afield. Continue to make use of videos and things. Andy will be preaching in Mudgee via video in a few weeks. I'll come out to Golgong. Nick is helping out as well. I don't want it to seem like it's an unsettled thing. Adapting is something we've had to do a lot over the last couple of years, a lot over our lives really when you think about it. And as we look at the news this week, and there's further unrest in Ukraine and further flooding and flood warnings, and that might not be finished yet, as the headlines about the COVID pandemic have kind of drifted from the front page, even though there are still 10,000 cases a day, 1,000 people in hospital, 10 or 20 deaths a day, it continues to go on. There's a lot of uncertainty still. It's what Mark Sayers, the blogger and podcast producer, has said is a grey zone. We're moving into an era that feels different, and we might be unsettled by that. In the midst of all of the news, I want to say it's the news of the kingdom that is most important, because that's what we see in this passage here before us this morning. Hopefully you read Luke chapter 4, 38-44, a wonderful account of Jesus beginning his ministry and the sort of early days of that ministry. And his number one priority is the news of the kingdom. Now, I don't know about you, but it's been easy to switch on the news and see the news of the world, and the news of New South Wales, and the news of the election. And I don't want us to lose sight of the number one priority for us as Christians, which is the news of the kingdom. And when we focus on that, that's the sure foundation that doesn't change and doesn't shift. The way we conduct church might change, the way I'm preaching might change, the way we organise our activities might change and flex, but it's all founded on the kingdom, or it should be. And so that's my encouragement to us today, to found our lives and our understanding and our activities on God's kingdom, because that will never change. That's what we see Jesus making his priority today. This news of the kingdom, it's what's driving through this whole first section. I've got a bit of an outline for you. The news of the kingdom is about restoration. The news of the kingdom is about compassion and power together. The news of the kingdom, it covers all sides. And the news of the kingdom is focused on the kingdom growing. And so that's the way we'll tease through this passage today. Let me read for you from verse 38. Jesus left the synagogue and went to the home of Simon. Now Simon's mother-in-law was suffering from a high fever, and they asked Jesus to help her. So he bent over her and rebuked the fever, and it left her. She got up at once and began to wait on them. Amazing things happening here. Amazing things happening. Jesus left the synagogue there at Capernaum, and he goes to the home of Simon. Now, we're not sure just exactly how well known Simon was to Jesus. We're not sure if they had a previous relationship. We'll get to the section in Luke's Gospel where it talks about the calling of the first disciples, and have this picture of Jesus seeing people for the first time and saying, "Follow me," and maybe that's not entirely accurate. We'll think about that in a couple of weeks. Here he is at Simon's home, and Simon's mother-in-law is suffering from a fever. This is not take a couple of Panadol and go to rest for a while type fever. It's a high fever, and there's some technical terms here which are a little bit uncertain, but it's certainly a serious illness, possibly ending in death. And so this is a difficult situation. They ask Jesus to help her. There's precedence here. Jesus has been healing people. He has been looking after people. And so this is a reasonable request. He bent over her and he rebukes the fever. Now, some people say, well, this is the same as he rebuked the demon, so this was a demonic possession type thing. No, not necessarily. Jesus rebukes things within the creation that aren't meant to be within the creation. So as he rebukes the wind and the waves, he says, be quiet, be still, that chaotic, tumultuous nature of creation, that's not how things were meant to be. Think back to the Garden of Eden. The creation is meant to be one where peace reigns and people are provided for and they're safe and secure, and the wind and the waves are out of place. And so Jesus rebukes them. The demons, they're out of place. Jesus rebukes them. This fever, it's out of place, so Jesus rebukes it. It's a high fever, but as soon as Jesus rebukes it, it takes 1 to 2 weeks to settle down. Needs a course of antibiotics. In our house, we've got some people who are close contacts, and it may well be that this video is played in Mudgee because I can't be there, because I'm needing to isolate because of the situation we're in. But no. As soon as Jesus rebukes this fever, it left her. Instantly. And that point is emphasized in the next little section there, where it says she got up at once and began to wait on them. And if you're a modern kind of sensitive person, you think, oh, that's a bit rough. Someone comes home from hospital, you don't immediately go back to the housework. It emphasizes the complete reversal that Jesus has accomplished here. The complete restoration of Simon's mother-in-law. Her healing is complete. And so she goes back to what she would have been doing anyway. And there's no recovery time. And there's no waiting around in hospital and sending cards and get well soon and things like that. No, the kingdom, when it comes into the world, it overcomes the sin and death of the world. It's a picture of complete restoration. It's a delightful picture. That this woman who is facing the prospect of death now gets on about the things of everyday life. She's gone from death to life. Now that's a wonderful thing for us to reflect on for ourselves. You see, the message of the kingdom is the message that through faith in Jesus, you can move from death to life. And I hope that you trust that. And I hope that you know that is true. It may be that there are people listening to this online, that may be people gathering as part of the church, and people still grappling with that, still unsure about their future, still unsure whether they are forgiven, still wondering with the impact of past sin in their life, and wondering if it really is true that they could be forgiven for that. The message of the kingdom is life from death, restoration and forgiveness in a chaotic and difficult world. And so I hope that you have that assurance and that comfort. The news of the kingdom is about restoration. It is also about compassionate power. We've heard a lot about power this week. We've thought a lot about the election coming up. We've thought about conflict in Europe and where is China fitting in with that, and feeling powerless ourselves perhaps. It only took a few days before the petrol prices are through the roof. If you filled your car up in the last week, it's cost so much more. We feel so powerless. Jesus steps into the world with power, but not brutal, oppressive power. He steps into the world with power and compassion. Verse 40. At sunset, the people brought to Jesus all who had various kinds of illness, and laying his hands on each one, he healed them. Moreover, demons came out of many people, shouting, "You are the Son of God!" But he rebuked them and would not allow them to speak, because they knew he was the Messiah. That word Messiah there, a technical word meaning God's anointed, chosen king, God's special king come to usher in the kingdom. Jesus here, he continues to heal people. This seems to be connected to the Sabbath. It seems, it's hard to know exactly. So it seems like on the day when he should be resting from work, there he is as sun sets. And the very last of the Sabbath days there, and still people are coming to be healed, and he is healing them. He's healing everyone who comes of all their various diseases. And not like a doctor who might be able to, at that time, heal one thing and not another, or you might need a special incantation to heal that one, and the demon may or may not respond to that, and so that's all very difficult. Here is evidence of Jesus' power and compassion working hand in glove, working together. They brought people who had various kinds of illness, and laying his hands on each one, he healed them. And not that the laying on of hands is some magic trick or some ritual that needs to happen. It's a profound sign of blessing. Jesus is able to heal people at a distance. He's able to heal them through other kind of physical signs to point to the healing, not to manifest the healing, but to show he is the one with power and compassion. Here he doesn't allow the demons to speak. And there are 4 or 5 different reasons why that might be. I'm not sure exactly why. It seems like he's not ready for his public kind of leadership role to be revealed, because there's so much expectation of a military aspect to that. And no, his focus is on the kingdom of God, not an earthly kingdom of violence. Perhaps it's in this particular area. He doesn't want that to be known. Later on, as he heals the man with a legion, and the legion of demons go into the pigs, and the pigs go, and he says, no, go and tell people in this area outside of Israel, getting them ready perhaps for that wonderful commission that the gospel is to be preached in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. Not ready for that yet. Perhaps you don't want to be endorsed by a demon. As the demons say, you're the Son of God. As the people hear the demons saying that, they go, well, these demons seem to think he's pretty high and mighty. Who is this person? Is he really a good person if the demons are saying that he's the Messiah? So a bunch of different reasons why it might be, but it's just not the time, it seems. This is not the style of acclamation that Jesus wants at the time. Somehow, this is going to detract from his message of the kingdom. Remember, that's his foundation. The kingdom of God, it brings restoration from death to life. It's about power to heal and command, but power exercised with compassion, so different to power exercised by people in this world. And it covers all aspects and all sides. Notice it's not just a physical kingdom. There are physical aspects, but it's also spiritual. There are spiritual aspects. So it's not like the kingdom of God is only spiritual, and so nothing we do matters. It's not like we can live as Christians and do anything with our bodies or food or money, and that's okay because I'm a spiritual person and the kingdom's about spiritual things. No, it's universal, it's complete, it covers all aspects of our lives, our spiritual lives and our physical lives. They're significant. There's a great sense of now and not yet as Jesus begins to usher in the kingdom. And it's a kingdom that has an impact now, and it will have an impact in the future. Living when we do, we can see 2,000 years of impact from the message of the kingdom. And there's so much that we should be thankful for in the way we live in Australia. The freedom and the prosperity and the human rights that we enjoy, and the respect that should be expected from each other and all of those things. The kingdom has had a huge impact for good in the world. And that's just a foretaste of the impact and perfection that will be in eternity. You see, I think we struggle, don't we? And it's a right struggle, and we should never feel completely like we've got it sorted out and on top of it, about the now aspects of the kingdom and the not yet aspects. I know there was a trend in theology and in some church circles to figure out exactly what's now and what's not yet, and to resolve that tension quite neatly and cleanly. And it's futile, because the kingdom is now and not yet. And the balance between that is something we'll always have to prayerfully consider and work towards expressing in our lives. We don't have the ultimate freedom that we'll have in eternity. That's not ours yet. We still live lives of self-control. We don't have the ultimate provision of God in eternity of rest. We work for a living. We work to achieve good things in this world. It's now and not yet. There's a timeliness here to Jesus saying to the demon, don't say anything. There'll come a time when the call will come to go and make disciples, preaching, teaching, proclaiming the good news. Now and not yet. The focus of Jesus, even in this early phase of announcing the kingdom in the Gospels, is on the kingdom growing. And straight away, as soon as you hear that phrase, you might think of those kind of parables that Jesus tells of the yeast that in the dough works its way all through the dough, and the dough gets bigger and it's all there. Or the mustard seed. In our house, we've got an assignment from school, a science assignment where someone needs to have different seeds growing and show the impact of different seeds. They happen to be mustard seeds. A great reminder of the kingdom, which is a tiny, tiny seed. And some of the farmers at Golgong will be starting to think about getting ground ready and getting crops planted before too long. A tiny, tiny seed that grows and grows and grows. The growth of the kingdom, it's part of the nature of the kingdom of God that we should anticipate its growth. And so as Jesus focuses on proclaiming the message of the kingdom, there's an anticipation of moving forward. We see it in verse 42, 43. At daybreak, Jesus went out to a solitary place. The people were looking for him, and when they came to where he was, they tried to keep him from leaving them. But he said, I must proclaim the good news of the kingdom of God to the other towns also, because that is why I was sent. And he kept on preaching in the synagogues of Judea. Here there's a priority of Jesus to keep on expanding this announcement, this news of the kingdom. As the kingdom grows, the message about it grows, and as people put their faith in the message of the gospel, ultimately, they are part of the kingdom. They become part of the kingdom. So this message of the kingdom and the growth of the kingdom, again, are things that go together. Jesus at daybreak doesn't bounce out of bed and attend to the next in line of healing. He goes out to a solitary place. I'm assuming to pray. We see him do that quite often. Luke doesn't exactly say to pray. Perhaps he's just taking a quiet moment of meditation. But the prospect that he's there praying in the context of the urgent announcement of the kingdom, that is a great lesson for us. Is that your pattern? Perhaps that is your pattern, to find somewhere quiet at daybreak to pray. And I know a number of people for whom that is their pattern, and a number of people who have recaptured that and are enjoying that. Cup of coffee, the special chair, watch the sun, pray. Thank God for his creation. Pray that we might serve him that day. It's wonderful. Wonderful pattern established by Jesus. Yes, he's the Lord of all. Yes, there are people who would be crowding around him to have him cast out their demons and heal. There's a lot to do, very busy. I like to say we're busy, don't we? I like to say we've got a lot on. Not more than the Messiah, surely, who took time to pray, not a waste of time, a key aspect of seeing the kingdom grow. And as he comes back, the people are looking for him, and they came to where he was, and they tried to keep him there. It's astounding to think of the sort of ironies that are woven through the gospel story at this moment. The devil, of course, takes Jesus to a high place and says, throw yourself off this high place, God will protect you. The people of Nazareth take him to a high place to throw him off, hoping that God won't protect him because they want him gone, killed. And there, amongst people who hate him and want to be rid of him, Jesus has a bigger priority than that. The kingdom's more important. And so he just walks through them. Kingdom's more important than that confrontation. Here, amongst people who want to embrace him, they love him, it seems, and they want to keep him there, he says, no, the kingdom's more important. And he goes on, I must proclaim the good news of the kingdom. That is why I was sent. You see, a key characteristic of the kingdom is the proclamation of it so that it would grow. That's why Jesus was sent. To grow the kingdom. To inaugurate it, to establish it, and to make it possible for his disciples to invite others into the kingdom. That's the great privilege of being Christian, you see. Not just that we're saved ourselves and have the hope of eternity and know God and have his guidance in our lives, but that we can be part in that chain of people who are announcing the good news and drawing people in. You see, that's the sure foundation that has lasted through centuries and centuries and centuries and will continue to last until the day Jesus returns. That's the foundation in uncertain times like we face now. And people have faced uncertain times. The Google search for end times apparently has spiked in the last little while. You think about the coronavirus pandemic, a plague, spike in thinking about the end times. War in Europe, spike in thinking about the end times. All through history that's been the case though, hasn't it? That life in this world is in bondage to decay, and sin has its impact, and people are fallen, and so it's uncertain, but the kingdom is not uncertain. So that's my encouragement to you today. So much of our lives are uncertain, but as we place our foundation in the kingdom and make that our priority, then that's the sure foundation for facing each day in the light of that ultimate day when we'll be with God forever. There are all sorts of ways of foundations letting us down, of renewal letting us down. I know people who've gone in for procedures for replacement hips and replacement knees, and after a while the replacement needs replacing as well. And so I know someone who's facing another procedure, and with the Blokes Bible study on Thursday morning, we kind of jokingly said, the first hip lasted 70 years and the second one only lasted 10, and we need a warranty on these sort of things. And we jokingly said, well, we do have a warranty on our bodies. 100% replacement warranty in eternity. That's where it will be fulfilled. That's what we look forward to. And so that hope draws us forward. That faith gives us a sure foundation. And so in the midst of troubling times, as we look at a video sermon again, as we figure out again what this week will look like, as we think through the implications, not just on the fuel price this week, there's a lot that we could be fretful for and worried about. The delightful news of the gospel is that Jesus has ushered in his kingdom. It's growing and growing, and as we focus on it, we grow too. And so let's focus on it. Amen.